I'm going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man Ant Walker here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. I'm very excited today, not just because I have the heavenly glow of this weird Southern California weather right now. It's because we've got a guest that you see on the show all the time. He's one of my best friends in the MMA world and former colleague at both Sherdog and the Body Lock. You can find his Fight Business podcast every week. He does a great job of breaking down the business aspect of the fight world. Welcome back, Pat Auger. What's going on, my man?
Man, thanks for the introduction. That was very flattering. I can't wait for you to rip me a new one somehow in the show.
or via DM afterward.
Or yeah, either or. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. I'm glad you hit me up. I love doing this stuff. Been too long. Yes,
it has. Yes, it has. And of course, we've got two men who we know very well. We don't need to introduce them, but we'll do it every week because we just love them that much. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, also the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
I am doing great. The year is winding down, thinking about the best and worst things of 2022. Got a last couple of events before kind of, it's ollie oxen free. So yeah, it just feels like a feeling of accomplishment, just surviving another year, covering this sport.
Yeah, this is a rough sport. It wears away on you when you're in the mix fully. So I'm still like, preserve some of my life force because I'm like halfway out. So, but of course, we got the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of Sherdog.com, also my good friend, Jay Petrie. Jay, what's up?
I wish I hadn't just developed a little cough like the last 5 minutes because I would bust into I'm 18 by Alice Cooper because that is obviously our stat of the week because I'm 18 and I don't know what I want except for, oh, wait a second. Raul Rosas Jr. on the MMA Hour just said that he could finish Aljamain Sterling. So apparently he knows exactly what that little man wants. And why do I talk about him? Because 18 is the stat of the week, because Raul Rosas Jr. is the youngest fighter to both appear and win in UFC history, tapping out Jay Perrin this weekend. And the sky might be the limit for this kid, but he's already gunning for Aljo. So... Good luck with that.
Youthful enthusiasm. It takes you places. I'm just going to throw this out there. I wonder if anyone else has speculated on this. I imagine Raul is drowning right now in the girls in his school right now. He's just drowning in it. They are throwing themselves all over. This man is enjoying the life. Enjoy yourself, brother. Strap up.
Definitely strap up. We don't need like Junior Broccoli running all over the place.
he did take a self-inflicted wound, and I guess I get it. I mean, location and everything. He doesn't have a driver's license, so that'll hurt.
Oh, you get a limo driver. You're good to go. It's like his brother is driving him around, right?
He got a $50,000 check, Mom. Minivan.
It's high school, and he's in the UFC. He's fine, dude.
Yeah, he's fine. Cars have back seats. I mean, I'm just saying.
He's going to be skeeting in the back of an Uber. It's all right.
Oh, oh, Ben, this is the show we're going to have today, and I'm all here for it. Fellas.
Viewer discretion is advised.
I did. I mean, really every week, and Pat has never added to any sort of like moral discussion on this show. So we go deep into the trenches. Yes, super ugly indeed.
Find the halflings.
Yes. So let's go ahead and get to it, man, my man. We've got a problem in mixed martial arts that reared its ugly head in the two biggest events over the weekend. Typically, we would talk about each fight individually, and we'll try to do that as much as we can. But it's so hard to not intertwine the co-main event of UFC 282 and the main event of Bellator 289. Judging has got to be fixed in this sport. We had a couple of absolutely wild scorecards, a 50-45 in favor of Sabatello on the Bellator card, and we had Paddy Pimblett winning a unanimous decision against Jared Gordon in a fight where, at least in my opinion, he very clearly lost. I actually scored it 30-27 the other way. Fellas, what's going on here?
Doug Crosby is going on. I mean, like a Santa Claus of shitty decisions. He like flew around the world in one night to, you know, bring joy to all the girls and boys, and he's been doing it for about 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you wanna have a scapegoat in these situations and point to Doug Crosby, and he is definitely a factor. Like, you remember the interviews that he's given over the very few interviews he's given over the years have been problematic at best. I'll leave it at that. And the way he approaches judging apparently is different than legitimate judges, according to his own actual words, about things like addressing, like, it was Ariel Helwani actually was just talking about the MMA Hour, about kind of weighing in on how promoters think that they want who to want to win, and he would kind of go that way. That should have been an immediate disqualifier. Boom, that's it. You're out. That's really your philosophy. Joke or not, you're out of here. But here's another issue that kind of comes to mind. Crosby was in Uncasville, Connecticut on Friday, and he was in Las Vegas on Saturday. Less than 24 hours, or 24 hours apart, give or take, because Bellator cards seem to run forever. And that's hard. Like, just traveling that way takes a physical and mental toll on you. One of the things that we were instructed in our MMA ref and judges courses was that the referee has to be physically and mentally able to perform their tasks at hand. And I don't think that Doug Crosby was able to do so. I mean, think about when you fly from LA to DMV to go see family. You'll need to take a little while to just kind of go, just to shake it off. He's going to work and putting in numbers that make you just boggle your mind. That you'd go, okay, I could see being screwed up in the head having to do this, but I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like anything about it. Pat, do you like anything about it? Ben, do you like anything about it?
I don't like anything about it, but I think the word scapegoat is important here, because this to me mimics another problem in that this is the same type of situation where, like, James Krause is the scapegoat for the betting scandal. But if you think he was the only coach or trainer or cornerman betting on stuff, yeah. I mean, Crosby is obviously a major problem. You have that Sabatello scorecard, which was insane. And then he was one of 3 judges that scored it for Pimblett. So obviously the other 2 judges also have a little bit of a problem. And as someone that has shadowed LFA, where I've basically I score it on my own sheet, and then I meet with, they have the ref judging in Kansas. Again, Kansas Athletic Commission does a great job with that, trying to circle the wagons and all of that stuff. But I've talked about this a little bit before. Some of these guys are athletic commission appointees, and it's state and local government politics. And when they're talking about how they score a fight, like, well, I learned that this means more. And then you have someone in the judges meeting correct them. That's not actually the rule. Like, really? And these are people judging pro fights, albeit LFA. So it's kind of, a league below, but same people that eventually get promoted to the UFC. And does anyone want to question why we keep seeing Saul D'Amato, Doug Crosby, all these same refs for all the big UFC fights? It's weird, because you'd think if you're going to different, you'd think if you go to different states, maybe you'd switch up the judges and refs based on that. And sometimes you do. We've seen it a little bit, but it's a systemic problem that deals with promoters and athletic commissions and how that all works. Because there's no reason to fly Crosby across country.
Pat, exactly. You are hitting the nail right on the head, because I'm as much as I think Doug Crosby is a total utter bozo, and has no business sitting in front of a cage to judge in a professional capacity and actually affect the paychecks and livelihoods and outcomes of careers. There are commissions that are continually bringing this guy on board. He's worked everywhere from New York to Vegas to California to Texas. Like, he's been around the entire country, essentially, judging And then on top of that, when the UFC goes overseas, he is one of the judges that they fly over. Like, they don't have to deal with him. It's not even like, okay, the athletic commission just made this guy show up and that's what it is, and it's out of their hands. Like, no, they've literally put that in their hands, and they brought this guy. Remember who scored that ridiculous scorecard of Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn won?
Oh my gosh.
You know, so this isn't justified. I expect wayward personalities to be a part of MMA. That's sort of one of the things that makes the sport what it is. If you don't think Crosby is a wayward personality beyond the Chael Sonnen interview that we referenced earlier, go look up an article that Chuck Mindenhall did for MMA Fighting a few years back, where he like hung out with Doug Crosby for an extended period of time. And some of the things he chronicles, like just odd conversations in the car rides, and it's just bizarre things he's saying to people on the street, and the way he laughs, like literally laughs at the criticism he receives as a judge, and no sort of desire to improve. I mean, we're still talking about this guy how many years later? Frankie Edgar, BJ Penn was what, 2010? It's 2022.
Yeah.
Now we're this close to 2023, and we're still talking about this guy. The athletic commissions that keep bringing him on board are the problem, and there's no accountability. There's not a single judge that has to face the music when it comes to explain this scorecard. I understand the judges are sitting in different places. If you're sitting in the crowd, that's going to determine how you see things. I know I've seen things different being on press row as you would on TV. That is totally understandable. But when a lot of the times you see the same names pop up that see the fight differently than 99.9% of the other people watching, there is a problem. And even Crosby's own sort of, I know judges shouldn't have their own criteria, but they do. But he's not even consistent with his own criteria, which is even more insane. To score of 50-45 for Sabatello, when Sabatello pretty much did like no real damage. He just laid and tried to win positional battles, which he lost a lot of those, by the way, too. And then you award Paddy Pimblett rounds in which Jared Gordon, like the last round when Jared Gordon kind of did that to him, you're not even consistent with yourself. So what are you doing? There's like, how is a fighter or a training camp, or how is anyone going to navigate how to win other than that absolutely crappy mantra, don't leave it in the judge's hands? No. How do they navigate that level of inconsistency? And
that kind of what you started with too about accountability purposes. We discussed this, and we in the ref and judges course, and more so in the ref courses, refs, and this is something that kind of flies under the radar, get benched all the time. A rough call, they talk about. This was an open conversation that the training officials had. I don't need to name names or anything, about, you know, that if there's an egregious call or a really bad stoppage, well, there maybe that ref might not get a phone call for a month or two. Hey, take another training course, come back, and we'll talk about it. I don't believe that ever was broached for a judge, for a judge's scorecard or number of judges' scorecards. Now, I don't want to step on Scott Frantana's toes, but he's got a great database of scorers and judges for how things have gone. And we were discussing it at the conference about how Sal D'Amato is, I mean, like he was one of the judging instructors, well, a very pleasant, nice guy. I enjoyed my multiple conversations with him, but that's different from a professional capacity where he will judge. We're talking at least twice as many fights as any other judge in the sport, like period. Like he is judging over twice as many, I don't know the numbers exactly, UFC fights than any other judge, period, the end. Why would it be so disproportionate? I mean, Sal gets a lot of flack because of the notable dissensions, and oh boy, you hear his name. But if you look at the volume how many fights he's actually judging, it's actually not nearly as aberrant as somebody like a Doug Crosby or somebody like a Bird, who has a notorious statistical pattern of dissension or anything like that. I mean, Crosby also scored Arlovsky Collier for Arlovsky, and I believe that was a tough one too. It's the accountability is such that the commission doesn't ever want the officials to speak unless they've been given permission to do so, because the commission wants to control the narrative and control the statement. And of course, they want to have their ducks in a row and make sure that somebody's not spouting off. They want to make sure that somebody's not, saying something out of character or peeling back the curtain. And that's totally fine, because as the commission, it's that they are the government representative body of sanctioning these fights. So I get that, but the lack of a commission statement or even acknowledgement of many of these issues, coupled with the fact that fighters have so little recourse in the event of any of these situations, it's a stone wall. And it's more, and like we talked about this many times, and Pat, I know you've talked about it too, about transparency and how the wall keeps going up. You figure it'd be coming down, like Nevada no longer discloses salaries, for example. That kind of transparency and disclosures and any sort of open conversation with the media, with anybody involved, is disappearing, and that needs to increase. There needs to be a conversation, right?
But if you do that, then you give away the hand that these local governments are going to bend over backwards to do whatever they want, so they get the economic revenue from these events.
Yep.
And I mean, there's a reason. Take judging aside for a second. We talk about refs. There's a reason that Herb Dean and now Chris Taglioni, right, is the new face. You're traveling all over the place. Why wouldn't you use more specialized refs for depending on whatever state you're in? It's because the UFC is probably requesting this. There is a think about Yamasaki and Mazzagatti, or
Mazzagatti.
Yep. Mazzagatti, both of them, right? Dana goes on tirades. It's like they should never ref in the UFC again. Suddenly they start disappearing and they're not reffing fights anymore.
Yeah.
It's, it is not, I mean, that one I kind of agree with, but still, right?
You guys remember Kim Winslow?
Which actually, I want to, while you mentioned that name, it just popped up a thought I had. If you had to make your nightmare team of officials, like the three judges and the one ref that something is going to go wrong, who are you picking? Like I'm thinking on the judges table, give me Adelaide Bird, give me Doug Crosby, give me Cecil Peoples, and I'll take Kim Winslow to ref.
What was the name? I don't know. I might switch out Peoples for what's his name, Valerian or something. He was. Dan. He was. He in Abu Dhabi, he reffed and judged in the same night and messed it all up.
Are you talking about Jared Villel?
Yes,
I love Jared Villel, but
you love Jared Villel. Okay,
but personally, we had a very good kinship coming together. But I do know Jared Villel, Brian Miner, and Mike Bell. Mike Bell has
improved. That's true.
Yeah, Mike Bell is actually excellent. He does that. But those three names we mentioned are some of the few that ref and judge on the same night, which is a very unusual and it has to be taxing thing.
If
like
it's
Brian
not
Miner
a regional show that's like under resourced, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. And sometimes it does because of that. Because otherwise they're going to call up, Bertie Stillwagner, who is a phlebotomist in Texas that you guys might have heard of, that he'll just, well, here we go. You got to be doing it this way. We're calling the local guys, and Patrick Patlin and Joe Solis and company.
Joe Solis, yeah. It's some horrible names out there. Ben, who's your nightmare team?
Well, I mean, I like Bird, Crosby, and D'Amato as judges, but the problem is if I put in Fernando Yamasaki as ref, we don't get the judges to fuck it up because somebody's going to die.
Someone's dead.
That's the thing, is it goes until the end of time, and then they hand in their scorecards, and then it's announced that the person died. So, that's...
Yeah.
The cards are soaked in blood that's just spurted and spattered from the
right.
Like it blends in with the ink, and all the reading the scorecards are all wrong.
And whoever died won the fight. That's just how it goes.
It's like, oh, you're alive, okay.
And it's really tough because then there are judges, I want to say on the rise. I don't know if that's the right word for it. Like Dave Hagen from Oregon, right? Commissioner that also can judge, and he's judging. He's very solid at that. There are some that you're like, why don't you get more reps? Let's filter things around here and at least make it so it's an even distribution. And again, I mean, Pat, what you said is correct. It is objectively correct, is that judges will be personally requested. Here's our team for this. Let's bring them out to Texas. Yeah.
And here's something that we're going down that rabbit hole, and I'm happy to go down it because I actually intended on it today. I want to bring a little light to on a tweet from a former colleague of ours, Adam Martin, and he put it out there like, hey, maybe we should start investigating these judges simply because the idea that these people are the ones who are in charge of this, they see it the wrong way so frequently in these pivotal points. There's got to be some level of corruption there. The allegations should be coming up at the very least. Somebody should be looking into this because I don't think it's unusual that Paddy Pimblett is held up on this pedestal, who clearly skill-wise does not belong there. I think that's pretty obvious. He's being held up on this pedestal. The commentary team is going out of its way to pretend like he's winning the fight. I mean, good Lord, the hoops that they jump through to make it seem like he was actually winning throughout a lot of this fight was absolutely nuts. Like, I'm watching this and hearing after the final bell rings, and they're talking about how close this fight was. And like, they really thought that? And I said that out loud to my wife, like, they thought that was close? Oh, something going on. And sure enough, that scorecard is red, and it's like, what the hell is going on here? And then to have the promoter after the fight not acknowledging the disparity between the scorecards and the reality, and acting like everyone else is crazy. I'm sorry, like, to have these three different entities that far away from what actually happened, I'm seeing collusion here.
Well, and another telling thing is there's that video circulating with Joe Rogan's and Dana White's reaction to the scorecards being read out, right? You could tell by Joe's face. He's got kind of the eye roll, like,
yeah.
But he's on commentary, just like you said. He is acting like Pimblett won the fight. He is talking about everything the Pimblett is doing super well. I mean, it's so biased, it's ridiculous. Yeah, there's definitely something to look into there. It seems a little fishy. Whether or not it is, it might just be gross negligence, right? I mean, Adelaide Byrd pictured multiple times on her phone when she's supposed to be watching a fight.
Oh, she's just incompetent. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be the same thing with Crosby. It was like, well, I think, Paddy probably going to win, whatever. And just goofing off. Who knows? But yeah, it's gross negligence at best. And that's, I wouldn't mind an investigation into judges at all.
Yeah. It's absolutely ludicrous to me that I expect the commentary team to serve the interests of the business. I expect that, and there's a reason why a lot of times I will mute the TV if I'm watching certain fights, because I don't want that to invade, my mind as I'm watching everything unfold. But good Lord, I mean, did they believe it themselves? They couldn't have believed it themselves.
Rogan didn't seem to.
Yeah,
based on his reaction.
I mean, come on now.
I want to read you guys something that I wrote during the night, and it wasn't necessarily because of how it was reflected in how the fights actually played out, but my own impression of how things were going to turn out. This is at the very end of the third round. The final bell rang, and then the fight's over. We have reached the judges' scorecards for the first time of the night, and scores could definitely go either way depending on how the second and third rounds were evaluated. Now, that wasn't that I thought that Gordon lost that fight. I scored it 30-27 Gordon. I thought the first round was clear Gordon, which two judges disagreed with. That was the clearest round for me. Second round was the closer one, but I still thought Gordon outstruck him and damaged with his blows were more impactful. And he also had, like 2 minutes of control time or something like that, in addition to everything else. And the third round, I thought, wow, Paddy landed 5 strikes. He didn't win that round, and he was held and controlled. When, striking and grappling are equal, then you have to go move on, because Jared Gordon only landed like 5 strikes. So it was straight up for Gordon. But I said in the Sherdog Slack, Paddy split incoming. Not because I thought Paddy won the fight, but because I felt this had the makings of the Montreal screw job all the way down. Like any opportunity. And I shouldn't feel that. I am independent media. I shouldn't have a preconceived notion that there is going to be some sort of a sway to the promoter's darling compared to how the actual person that won the fight. But I had that feeling in my chest that Jared Gordon was going to lose that fight, even though he won it. And that is why I think there should be investigations.
You know what? I'm reminded of a lot of the infamous screw jobs in boxing that I've seen over the years. And
Marvin Hagler, how many times did they screw him?
Man, can you think of like all the times where MMA was like on the rise and the defense against the boxing community was the purity of the sport, was okay, these screw job decisions, it's clearly corrupt judging and blah blah blah, and there's everything. If you were the promoter's guy, you were going to win, and we got our own terms for it, the hometown decisions and whatnot. There are terms specifically for these moments. We're finding more and more of these moments in mixed martial arts at the highest levels. More and more of these things are happening. Like I can think back to Pernell Whitaker versus Oscar De La Hoya, a fight in which I saw very clearly for Pernell Whitaker. And I remember the narrative around that was De La Hoya was planning on retiring if he won that fight. I mean, if he lost that fight, he won it. Okay, now the guy keeps he keeps fighting, and you keep the cash cow coming in. Mm-hmm. I can think of going back to Adelaide Bird, like the scorecards that contributed to the Canelo and Triple G, the draw in the first fight, where it's just like, what are y'all watching? Looking at her scorecard in particular, like, yo, this is absolutely maddening. Amir Khan and Lamont Peterson, another one. Although I didn't think that was much of a robbery, probably because I'm a DC guy and I was there for the fight in DC, so that was a big moment for me personally. But we've seen this happen time and time again in boxing, and it was always like, oh, that could never happen here because this sport is just so no. It feels like it's all a sham at this point. This is turning into everything that we didn't want it, holding up boxing as the example of what road not to travel down. And I think we're very, very far along that path, gentlemen. So it's time for somebody to do some explaining about why we got Doug Crosby being flown out with the intention to screw things up, why we've got people winning fights and getting double the paycheck that they don't deserve, or why these people, the rightful winners, are being pushed back in their careers, and all the calamity that results in the wake of this foolishness. So, fellas, let's, I guess, talk about some individual fights while we can, because there's another controversial judging thing, which I didn't want to include it into that discussion because I didn't really see much of an issue with it. We don't have a light heavyweight champion right now. Magomed Ankalaev and Jan Blachowicz fought to a split draw. Gentlemen, did you agree with the scorecards?
They went 3 different ways. I agreed with at least one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Which one did you agree with?
I thought Ankalaev won. I scored it 4 rounds to 1 for him, but I'd be fine with 3-2. I gave Blachowicz the second round. I can see giving him the third round. Beyond that, you're straining my credulity.
And did anybody see it as a draw?
I didn't, but I could see it as a draw. Like I didn't see the last round was a 10-8, but I could easily see 1-2-3 on, not easily. I could see 1, 2, 3 Jan, and then 4 Jan, 5, 10, 8 Jan to get the draw. It's weird because I looked at these scorecards and went, okay, I can see how it happened. It's like, just to harken back to the last fight. If you say the last 2 rounds were close, which first of all, we're skipping past the fact that 2 judges thought that the first round went to Paddy, which is insane. Skipping past that, if we can acknowledge that 2 and 3 were pretty close and were almost toss-ups, it is theoretically arguable that you could go both of them that way. But I couldn't see the argument that you could have the swing rounds that leaned one direction both go that way. In this situation, I could see that round 3 was the toss-up, and even round 2. You know, round 2 I thought was the Jan round. In fact, that was the one where he hurt his leg.
Really was
pretty
kicking his legs out.
So I thought that was the clearest round. Whereas round 1, maybe because Jan just basically threw leg kicks and whatever. I didn't feel as gross as the fight beforehand, but maybe that's because I was already so low.
Yeah.
Even something that was kind of questionable was better. Like there was what we needed in this situation was for the UFC to swing a heavyweight slobber knocker in right above that. Like, give me Josh Parisian and Chase Sherman. Put that in there as a palate cleanser. Something stupid will happen. We'll forget the Paddy fight, and then we'll move on to the bad decision, because this is just, I look at it and go, but that's it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I had Ankalaev winning the first round, but ever so slightly. Mm-hmm. And that for me made the difference of why it wasn't a draw. Because if you have Jan winning round 1, I thought Jan won round 2 and 3 pretty clearly just because of the leg kick damage and the visible damage to Ankalaev, right? But then 4 and 5 were Ankalaev's, and I had a 10-8 for Ankalaev in round 5 because Jan literally overextends, goes to the ground, and then doesn't throw anything.
The whole round,
right?
Yeah.
It's so that to me is it's not by a huge margin, but it makes the 10-8 case enough. But yeah, these scorecards were very much closer fight. I think this is something where, depending on where you're sitting live versus TV, it could make enough of a difference, right? So I don't have nearly as much gripe with it. If anything, this though shows again the inconsistency of how people are looking at fights. And even if we're not talking about the negligence or corruption aspect of it, just so many people come up different ways and have their different opinions about how these things should be judged. It's just because you got to feel for them, especially since they made the new light heavyweight main event the same night. Well, which maybe we'll get into in a bit, but yeah, it's just kind of I don't know, not nearly as bad as the fight before. Agreed on that. The fight before
definitely.
Hey guys, I guess this is a good time, Sandy, to ask the question. We talked about fixing judging and fixing criteria, whatever we may do. Would one possible fix that should at least be attempted, should they try and sequester the judges so that they can watch it from an angle that is not cage side dependent on where they are placed? Because that's an idea. Like, do like what they did for, this isn't the same situation, but they did for Snoopcast for Dana White's Contender Series, in that Snoop and Uriah Faber were in another room, isolated from the fights themselves. If you put the judges watch the fight with earmuffs on, or just without sound or something, whatever, I don't know, I figure that out, to make it so they're seeing the same thing that everybody sees.
I think you're going in the right direction, but logistically that can be an issue. I think the one thing that solves, which I guess if you have fights at the Apex Center or something, this isn't an issue, is not being influenced by crowd noise.
Yes, exactly.
That's the main thing. But as far as the angles that you're seeing, then it's sort of dependent on what camera is turned on. Then it becomes whoever is running the production van outside the arena. That's the person who's controlling what the judges see, and that opens up another can of worms. Not necessarily corruption, but just like, this is another layer of things to get through in order to get to the truth. Which,
well, and I know they tried this in 2015 in New Jersey, I think, they ran an experiment on it, but I thought the results of that, I don't remember, I'd have to look it up, but I thought the results of that were essentially like it didn't change the scorecards much. I think I'm waiting for robo judges. You know, they're talking about robo umps for baseball. I'm waiting for robo judges.
There's a strike
algorithms
right here.
Algorithms to decide which if you
FPR
play like
FPR.
If you played like the EA Sports UFC games, you know the algorithms are all jacked up for that judging. So we'd be having the same problem, I think, in one way or another. I think when it comes to the judging, it's more so the people. And the clearly defined criteria, whether or not that's being used, and whether you have goofballs who are, who've got these wayward personalities that are just deciding on a whim, or money's being slid under the table. Hey, I'm not the one to say it. So, I did say that shit. So I really think it's a deeper problem than that. But this fight didn't seem like that to me. This just seemed like a genuinely very close fight with very clear rounds one way or the other, and except for one or two. And that's all that
mattered. Yeah,
like I actually scored at a draw. Like I thought Jan won 1 through 3, and I gave Ankalaev 4 and a 10, 8, and 5.
Yeah,
I think every scorecard in this case was very valid. Now, fellas, the aftermath of this. We still don't have a light heavyweight champion. Yuri Prochazka sounds like he's getting his shoulder rebuilt, and we've got Jamahal Hill versus Glover Teixeira for the vacant title now in a matter of weeks. Was this the right call to make?
Can I make a statement, and you guys can give me the business based on
absolutely.
it? Okay, I'm gonna make here is my end of the year bold prediction.
I'm expecting a unfolded paper if this is
like should I get some whiskey right now to prepare me for what I'm about to say?
I don't have one of those handy. No. My bold prediction, which beforehand earlier this year was that Larissa Pacheco would beat Kayla Harrison. What's up? Is at the aftermath of UFC 283 in Rio, where we're actually still not sure the bout order. Glover Teixeira, Jamahal Hill, and Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno 4. We're still not sure which one's the main event, which we should know by now.
You talking about Brandon Moreno, Glory MMA fighter?
Yeah, he's a young up and coming prospect. I heard about him one time. Anyway, my bold prediction is that at the aftermath of UFC 283, there will be not one but 2 vacant titles, and I'll explain. Glover Teixeira wins, vacates his title, retires. Davison Figueiredo wins the quadrilogy, tetralogy. I'm done making weight at 125. I'm moving up to 135. Aljamain Sterling, you're taking everything I work for. And we will have 2 vacant championship belts at the end of this. What do you guys? I want to hear it. Come on.
Dave's
wrong.
I immediately push back.
Okay.
Ben, floor's
Ben
yours.
was shaking a little bit.
Davison Figueiredo is going to be like, I'm done making flyweight before the fight. He's going to bloat weight, win, and it'll be vacant.
Oh, okay.
He's going to DeBronx this shit.
And then he beats Moreno, and it's still vacant.
Yeah,
so it was vacant
Yep.
beforehand. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be like the second time that he won a fight, and the belt was vacant as a result.
Pat?
I think Glover's going to hang on to it if he wins.
You think he's going to stick around?
Yeah, I think he's going to rematch Jiri. I think he really wants that fight. I don't think he's going to stick around for a long time, but I think he's probably going to try and rematch that fight, or at least stick around long enough. Maybe he decides after a while he's going to leave, but I don't see him retiring in the cage. I don't think the UFC would let him, ideally, right? I don't think they loved that idea. They wanted GSP. They knew they had to have known GSP was going to walk away, but they were like, well, you got to say you're going to keep fighting. And also, side note, I'm almost positive that fight is going to be the main event, because it was clear when the Nunes-Pena fight fell out, they were looking for something with more of a draw. Yeah. And I think this was their perfect opportunity why they pounced on it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I push back on that, because I do think Glover wins, and I do think he tries to defend that belt, once before hanging it up. But also too, I think as far as the Davison Figueiredo thing, Like, he's being coached by Henry Cejudo now, who is rumored to be fighting Aljamain Sterling for the bantamweight title. I think he tries to make flyweight again to not conflict with his new coach, who, since he's been coached by him, we've seen a lot of improvements in his game. Say what you want, but Henry Cejudo turned out to be a pretty damn good coach. So I think that theory falls apart, Jay, but I like your ambition. However, Batman does not. I dropped the Batarang because the arm moves. The Batarang just fell off, but Batman was going to throw the Batarang at you, so you get the idea.
Instead, Batman's just going like this, which is also valid.
Or Joker's yelling at you.
Well, I guess if there's an upside, it's that Henry is still in the USADA testing pool. I just checked right now in USADA. He's been tested 13 times in 2022. I actually was dependent on that answer. Is Henry coming back? Well, he might have to sit out for a while, but he is still being tested.
Yeah. So gentlemen, where should we go next here? Glover Teixeira, Jamahal Hill is your fight. What about Anthony Smith? We gonna get into this?
Be ready to fight as an alternate.
I mean, yeah. Anthony Smith is a company man. He's a known company man on record. I'm sure he was heartbroken about it, but he's never gonna say no to that. So I'm not surprised. Like, it's common tactic of the UFC, and especially when you got somebody like Smith who is on the record, I don't know how many times, talking about how he will be easy to work with them, do whatever they want. Like,
it walked all.
What did he expect? Yeah.
Yeah, like to see. Forgive me if am I stepping on someone's? I'm not surprised because. Oh no, we changed that right before we recorded. Okay, so I'm it was heartbreaking watching that little clip. And he finds out on air as he's talking, like, I mean, they didn't have the decency to, like, let him know in his earpiece or something before he goes on air. Like, give him a break away from the desk for a second, and someone, because it's not like they're in different locations. Like, they were like upstairs from Dana and Hunter Campbell,
too far of a walk,
Sean Shelby, like all the. They didn't have to walk that far. It's an elevator in T-Mobile Arena. I've been on that elevator before. Yeah, it's just you can go upstairs and you can just say, hey Ant, man.
Yeah, but there are crowds.
Let me holler at you for a second.
Man. It's just it's too much work, man.
Let me holler at you for just a second here. They didn't have the decency to do that. I had a without divulging a whole lot of details in this. I one time I had like an actual, like, I wasn't on duty or anything, over a couple drinks, had a conversation with Anthony Smith about UFC 235 and how he could have taken the belt on a DQ win and it would have been perfectly valid, and he would have guaranteed himself pay-per-view points for the inevitable rematch and would have had a nice payday. And his response, which probably the way I asked it, I thought he might slap me or something, but I'm like, bro, why'd you do that? But he being a nice, merciful person, he didn't beat me into oblivion at my snark. But everything he was saying was tracing back to a level of honor and a level of respect for MMA and martial arts culture and just trying to be like an upstanding guy. And these were traits that were praised by the promotion immediately after 235. I sat there in that same room and watched Dana say that he was, quote unquote, a stand-up guy and how impressed he was with him and how thankful they were. And this praise went on for a little bit, that he was happy that Anthony Smith did not take the quote unquote dishonorable route. This is how they repaid him.
Should have joined one championship, man. They're really honorable, they would have got his back. I don't know.
They'd have turned him into a superhero.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anthony Smith versus Brandon Vera, man. I'm into that.
I'd watch that. I definitely watch that.
It wouldn't last long.
It wouldn't. I really, that was disgusting. That was straight up disgusting that it was done in that manner. I understand the fight being broken apart because of the extenuating circumstances, but have the common decency to let the guy who's working the broadcast for you know when he's up fucking stairs. I
is one. I am grasping at silver linings here. Some people kind of disparage Jon Anik because of whatever. I personally think he's probably the best play-by-play guy in the business, and he's a stand-up guy too. There was that moment in that whole situation where I don't actually know who the presenter was, who she was sitting on the table. I actually don't know who that was. Informed them that Smith lost that fight. And as Smith is gathering his thoughts, Anik interjects and praises Smith and says words. And the words weren't as important. The message was great, but the words were to allow Smith to gather his thoughts for a few more seconds instead of just being like, what the hell? To give him that moment, I think was just an absolute underrated just a mention of a guy of JA. It seems weird because he's kind of playing the company role by playing it out, but at the same time, he's also kind of giving his, maybe his friend, I don't know the relationships, just a second, a couple seconds to kind of, just to get it in, because Smith, I don't think was going to be very happy in the immediate aftermath.
No, of course not. And I think, Jay, you're right on trying to praise Anik for that, because that was not a scripted moment.
No, that's exactly right.
That was not a scripted moment. That was not like he was prompted to do that.
Yeah.
If they had time to prompt Anik to prepare some nice statement for Anthony Smith, they had enough time to tell Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
They needed that live reaction, man.
Yeah,
that's good TV.
And you know what?
Pat,
to punctuate that even more, go to ESPN's MMA Twitter account. I don't know if they did this on Instagram or not, but they definitely did this on their Twitter account. They reposted that. Like the moment and like the moment that Anthony Smith finds out that his main event fight is off, like they reposted that and sent that out there as
they
like
knew it was a
for content.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think that's disgusting. That's one of your guys. That's one of your employees that you threw him out there like that. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Yeah. And not only does the UFC deserve to be criticized up and down the street for that, but ESPN deserves that same criticism as well, because they capitalized on a moment where one of their broadcast guys, and I know the UFC handles a lot of the production things with ESPN, but ESPN has to approve of everyone that goes on air on that analyst desk. Like one of your guys.
One of their good guys.
Yes.
Like good as in skilled, and the reputation in the industry. And his reputation as being a genuinely good person. All of those things put together. Like, you remember the story about the guy that broke into his house and he could have killed that guy. He didn't. He just beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, I think that was just terribly handled.
It's really a shame they didn't olive branch him by saying, but how do you feel about fighting Jan on that event? I mean, obviously Jan is injured or whatever. He's just coming off of a 5-round fight, but to have here's your consolation prize. Here you go. Have fun with Paul Craig or Nikita Krylov, or we're keeping you on the headliner. Don't worry. Anything would have been better than the absolute it felt like, it looked like he was getting punked. That's what you were expecting Dana to come out from behind and be like, but it never happened. He just got totally and utterly bamboozled. And I love that word.
That is actually a good word. Good movie also. So gentlemen, let's keep things pushing here. Paddy Pimblett, we're going to talk about him again for a second here, because this isn't centered around just the fight necessarily. Paddy Pimblett had a hell of a week from a PR standpoint. What, a day or so after our last episode goes live, we see this extended like just lambasting courtesy of Ariel Helwani about Paddy Pimblett's appearance on Dana White's show, or Dana White appearing on his show. I forget which one it was.
It was Paddy's podcast.
Oh, Paddy's podcast. Again, Dana was a guest. Paddy starts going on Ariel. Ariel pulls out all of the receipts, pulls out the AK-47, loads it up with hollow points, and unleashes a tirade that knows no equal in MMA media. Then, after the fight, a fight where 90% of the people watching felt that he lost, including his supporters in the arena, and he's just going off on the mic and dismissing any idea that this fight was close. And did he turn himself into a villain? And if so, is there a redemption arc you see coming for this guy?
I don't even think he necessarily turned himself into a villain. Like, that particular crowd was not loving the decision, but, you know, it wasn't a sizzling fight. They were a little bit restive no matter what. Next event, like if that event took place in the UK, they would have been going bananas for him, even knowing that he probably lost the fight. So I'm not sure he's even necessarily, you know, an unmitigated villain. It's worth noting that, you know, Dana White is very much on his side. Dana like blasted Jared Gordon and blamed it on him, which is about as bad as it gets. And even if he is a villain, like, redemption is easy. You know, I mean, think of, like, Michael Bisping used to be one of the most, like, disliked fighters in the UFC. All it took was for him to knock out somebody that was even more disliked. And yeah, you know, like, just Luke Rockhold was so odious to most fans that all he had to do was knock him out, and all of a sudden he's this incredibly popular guy. I mean, that stuff flips, you know, with, like, the whims of the fan base. MMA fans are dumb, myself included.
We are a dumb bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're only as hated or loved as your last fight, right? It's I feel like he kept the same character that he's usually had. I feel like he did lose, in my opinion, some of the more casual fans, I think, right? There's that 7 tiers of customer segment that Lawrence Epstein talked about, with when they're looking at what they classify as UFC fans. You got hardcore all the way to, like, super casual, and there's 7 tiers of them. They've admitted this. And I feel like in the semi-hardcore and very, very casual brand, you're probably between the Ariel stuff. Anybody that knows Ariel, right? That's the one journalist you didn't want to go after because he actually is known in other crossover circles. If you're on the casual end of the spectrum and they can name any MMA media member, it's almost certainly going to be him. So to do that was kind of, I don't know why you're shooting yourself in the foot with your own brand here. That's not great for business. Yes, you won a couple points with the boss, but so what? Then to do what he did in the octagon, right? He tried to make the joke about referencing his Ariel interview that Rogan just completely stonewalled. Just said, like, oh no, I won, clearly all this stuff, when it was so obvious he didn't to so many people. I feel like that turned off. I saw a lot of people get turned off by him, and I'm sure there are many more we didn't see that got turned off. So I think it probably hurt his brand a little bit. But in terms of villain versus, you know, a beloved figure after his mental health speech, I mean, this dude has always had a terrible streak with some of his stuff. I mean, if you want to go look at his tweets from 2016, 2018, some of the stuff he's saying is very bad. I know they got resurfaced a little bit after the Ariel stuff, but I mean, he's talking about how immigrants are causing all the problems. You know, he called Ilia Topuria a mongrel in a pretty bad way, right? Not like oh, you're from the U.S. and you've heard that, like, oh, you know, mongrel from, like, I don't know, a outdated racist Disney movie. Like, this is like, oh no, you're being a little much here. So he easily can win back all the fans. He goes out in his next fight, does a big KO. Even just the slightest apology. I feel like I was off last time, all this stuff, or I went back and rewatched it, and now, you know, but I'm back. I'm here to stay. Done. Right? He's not on the same level and established superstardom as Conor McGregor, but how many times have we seen Conor go out there, right, and do ridiculous stuff, and then he shows up and knocks somebody out, a la Donald Cerrone, and suddenly everybody loves him again. It's like, okay.
Pat, I love the fact that you brought up Conor McGregor, because Paddy is compared to Conor in so many ways, and he's so thought crazy to be the next Conor. But there's a huge difference between him and Conor, even from a PR level, like just the way they fight. Conor goes out there and just knocks out people, knocks out top contenders. It's hard to keep the bad press rolling. It's just now that he's hit this unfortunate streak in his career that the bad things are starting to pile up, and you're starting to see public sentiment turn in a lot of ways. But when you're winning and winning in the fashion that he was against the people he's winning against, it is very, very hard to get those voices of bad but so loud. Paddy Pimblett is not that. He's not that in the cage. He's not that smooth on the mic. He doesn't have the things that made Conor who he is. But
this is, and I talk about this on the Fight Business podcast this week. Cheap ploy. In terms of this is the new marketing model that the UFC has kind of figured out to build up superstars. I think it clicked for them with O'Malley, because I think he was probably the first kind of guy to do this, and he's ended up being good enough now where, regardless how you feel about the Jan fight, he's near a title shot and he's shown his skill. But they are now pushing people in a way that makes them seem larger in life and like they're the new Conor or new Ronda, when we know if you look at their skill set, you know that they have a ceiling. It's very unlikely they're going to break out, right? Pimblett, if you look, he lost to Soren Bach and Nad Naramini.
And Julian Erosa.
And Julian Erosa, he did.
Let's be clear, Douglas Crosby scored that fight, in effect.
Right. And so you knew he had a ceiling, but yet he's been pushed as this megastar. And you see it with other people too. They've done it with Chase Hooper. They did it with Molly McCann. The Rock came out and said Molly McCann was going to be the next women's champion because their marketing works so well.
Because the shoes.
Yeah. And you're seeing it right now with Raul Rosas Jr., right? The kid's 18 and he beat Jay Perrin, who's never won in the UFC. He's got a lot of potential, but Ariel Helwani tweeted, sums it up when somebody like basically called Ariel out and said like he hasn't beat anybody who's won in the UFC yet. And in Contender Series, he struggled a little bit. Like he won, but he was clearly overpowered just because the dudes were bigger and had more muscle, right? Rosas is still growing. He's literally 18. But Helwani says, who cares? He's 18. He's done all this stuff. That is the exact type of response the UFC wants. And that's what they're doing. And it's working. It's working for semi-casual fans. You've got Dave Portnoy and all these people who are now watching the UFC semi-regularly, hitching their wagons to people that if you are any sort of hardcore fan or you've watched any tape, you knew Paddy Pimblett was never going to be champ or let alone top 10. He'd have to make leaps and bounds of improvements, and he's 28, had 23 fights.
He's a finished
he's
product.
Not a prospect. Like this is a storied veteran at this point.
Right, but this is what
gets
the
hit
UFC
way too often.
Yeah, but this is what the UFC is doing now, right? I mean, Molly McCann's an even clearer case because she got wrecked by Robertson and Laura Pripico, I believe, as well as somebody else. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And it's one of those things. They're tweaking this so that when they get the next Cody Garbrandt or somebody, O'Malley, someone who has the skills that maybe they can be the champ, they're going to have such a fan base built up that when they win the title, even if they lose the next fight, they're going to be somebody selling pay-per-views for them. That's what I believe.
They tried to lay the groundwork for something like this with Sage Northcutt and Paige Van Zandt. Like that was sort of they were the prototypes of this style of marketing. I think Paddy Pimblett is probably the worst out of the bunch. From a skill standpoint, and even from where he is from a career standpoint. Like you're talking about a 10-year vet that they're trying to prop up on this, and a guy who takes a ton of damage on a regular basis on the fights that he wins. If Jared Gordon had an ounce more of power in his punches, Pimblett wouldn't have seen the second round. Like he was getting lambasted from bell to bell through that first round.
And Gordon normally fights at 45, right?
Yes.
Like this was up a weight class for him. Yeah, if you're talking about a featherweight, it's and I will say, even with Page and Sage, right? I think the mistake they learned from that is they saw them get a couple wins, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna tier you up like we normally tier hot prospects. Yeah. With these new guys, it's like, nope, we're gonna put you against bottom of the barrel people that are probably getting cut after they lose to you. And
Chris
we're gonna
Coutinho has entered the chat.
There you go. There you go.
They might make him fight Raul Rosas. I mean,
Kaylin Curran is on her way back to fight Molly McCann.
It's a weird cult of personality they build, because they make it more about the fighter than the fighter's achievements, accomplishments, and skill. And I feel like that does a disservice when the fighter can't measure up. But it's like the UFC's like, when they get one, when they get an O'Malley type, which again, I thought lost to Peter Yan, but at the same time, at the very least, he is right there.
Yeah. He proved that he belonged in the cage with Yan.
So even that. But then you're going to have the Paddies who are going to run up. Like, seriously, how do you matchmake this kid going forward? Do you give him somebody that is worse than Jared Gordon and admit that you think that he lost to him? Do you give him Jalen Turner?
Clay Guida is the perfect nest test for Paddy Pimblett. He is so tough, and his wrestling is so good.
You know what? If they
his bald spot is so bald.
If they really wanted to ruin everything, you know who they make him fight? Who do they make him fight? Ben Duffy. Who do they make him fight?
Topuria?
Nope. Give me something better. A lightweight.
Ruin it for Paddy?
Like everybody. Ruin it for everybody.
Oh, everybody?
Anyone in the top 15?
No. Because it would be a terrible fight too.
Terrible fight. Okay, never mind. Because I was going to say Terrence McKinney, who would knock his head clean off his shoulders.
Destroy. Mark Casey. All Britain in London. Mark Casey would make it a horrible, boring fight. He'd win a horrible, boring decision. And then Paddy lost. He lost to a guy that nobody cares about. But it's never going to happen. They're going to give him a...
That fight would make me start, like, chanting USA.
I can't figure out how the UFC can genuinely matchmake this kid. Because either it's go time, because he's technically 4-0 in the UFC, and you give him I don't know. Again, you can't give him a ranked guy. You can give him... Or you give him a Tony Ferguson, who's got name... winnable, ugly.
Who's technically ranked.
Yes, that's correct.
But Tony Ferguson might beat Paddy Pimblett. Like, that's right. He probably beats him.
Yeah,
even this version of Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson took a round off Michael Chandler and then lost to Chandler to something that Paddy Pimblett does not have in his arsenal.
No,
Tony Ferguson slaughters Paddy Pimblett.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is the very important point that we're all trying to make here, is that the hard ceiling is so evident that the hype is leading and massively outpacing the actual skills that have been displayed. Like, this is a guy who almost got knocked out by Luigi Vendramini.
It's time to bring back true governor-elect BJ Penn. It's time. You put Penn versus Pimblett in there.
Yeah. Hey, what's CM Punk up to? Does he want to make another run? Paddy Pimblett want to take a welterweight fight? Like, that's essentially what we're looking at in order to boost this guy up. I mean, they're going to have to start taking either one, do what they did with O'Malley, which they abandoned, a couple of years ago, maybe, when they were literally just like digging up guys from wherever to fight him, like the MVP method, or you put on like actual freak show fights where Paddy Pimblett fights KSI or something like that. That's the only direction this is going to go.
Because you can't give him fringe top 15 guys, like top 20, top 25. Like Diego Ferreira would murder him. Like Gregor Gillespie, oh my gosh.
Oh, absolutely slaughter him.
And these are names that are outside the top 20.
Yeah.
And or a reasonable step up in terms of, well, he beat Jared Gordon on paper. So you give him that, and that's crazy. And it's also
Diego
not sexy.
Sanchez.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he weren't an
call
Eagle,
him back in.
Here's almost certainly what they're going to do is they're going to find another lightweight who is on a skid and put that lightweight against someone terrible, right? In a kind of like loser goes home match, then whoever wins that, they're going to build that person up as like, oh, they made a comeback. And then they're going to put Paddy against him, because the truth is they are fine making a matchup for Paddy against someone below Gordon, because as long as Paddy still has the casual end of the spectrum drawing, because those casuals will have no idea, right? They're gonna know Paddy's fighting again, and they're gonna be like, oh, can he come back? And oh, he knocks out this dude. All UFC has to do is,
I've heard of Jim Miller. He's pretty good.
Yeah, like they've got like this warehouse filled of blonde wigs, and like, we got to sell all of these. How do we get these sold at every arena?
The fidget spinner of 2022.
You put him against Natan Levy and see how many objectionable things that Paddy can say.
Oh God! Wow.
Hey man, the UFC's going all the way on this guy. How many times has Paddy Pimblett been banned on Twitter and Instagram?
Oh,
it's a non-zero number, and it is not just once for racist, xenophobic, horrible, hateful speech type of content. So yeah, they're hitching their wagon to this guy, and it's going to be a real bumpy ride, which is why people want him to fight. Like Damon Martin of MMA Fighting. It's like, fine, you're saying he's the guy, you're saying he's going to do it. Let's put him up against the Jalen Turner. Let's give him Moicano. Let's see what happens, buddy. Stinkers to win.
if they do that, that's because the numbers are changed. I'm still wholly convinced that Molly McCann's drawing numbers dropped to a certain level, and they were like, all right, time for you to fight Aaron Blanchfield. That was
you can transfer your goodwill onto her.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's what they'll do, is if they think he's on the decline, they'll be like, okay, who's somebody that can kind of get some of that rub from Paddy? Yeah. And yes, I understand how that sounds, but yes, get that rub from Paddy. That's, just.
They're like, it's like, hey, Poirier, we need you, buddy.
Raufeon Stots, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. So, wow, we could definitely we've well exceeded our normal time, but we still have a couple more things to talk about before we wrap things up. Bellator 289 bantamweight tournament. Stots and Patrick Mix are in the final. Who wins?
Mix destroys him.
I agree. Second. And if you'd asked me before Friday, I would have been slightly leaning Stots. But Stots,
that's fair.
Stots struggled with Sabatello. I mean, the horrible 50-45 scorecard for Sabatello distracts from the fact that it was definitely possible to score that fight for Sabatello.
Yeah, it was a 48-47 either way.
Yeah, it was a 48-47 fight, and the fifth round was kind of Stots struggling like that with Sabatello, especially getting game run on him on the ground in the way he did, makes me think that Mix is going to be a bad matchup for him. I see their fight now being maybe not as quick and brutal, but like McKee versus Caldwell, where there's a good ground guy who's kind of built his arsenal around being a good ground fighter versus a bit of a wizard on the ground that's going to style on him.
I can see Stots shooting in because when he started getting tired, he started shooting for more distant, more naked, unset up takedowns. That is, I would go so far as to say Patrick Mix by guillotine before the night's end. That's just how I can smell it playing out. If he can tap out Tiger Magomedov, aka 79175 Magomedov, then you can absolutely, it's an inside joke, it's okay. Then you can absolutely get past Raufeon Stots, who leaves his neck out because he's so confident. Like how Ben Henderson used to fight? He wouldn't give a crap if you could grab his neck, because 99 times out of 100, he'd do some weird miraculous move and get out, unless you're like Anthony Pettis or whatever. That's kind of how I see Stots approaching his grappling. It's like, what are you going to do? The only guy to take me out was Merab when he clocked me with a Shoney Carter back fist. So it's not like it's going to happen again. It's mix.
Yeah.
Angola, New York, stand up, I guess.
Yeah, Mix looked fantastic,
dude.
Just absolutely fantastic in that fight. The way everything he did from a technical standpoint was just spot on. He totally took away Magomed's game. It was beautiful, beautiful stuff. All right, fellas, we're gonna move on to quick hits. I got 10 seconds on the clock here. Let me make sure I got the sound up. and we're going to ask each other some questions under time here. Pat, start with you. Will Darren Till survive the next series of roster cuts?
Ooh, tough, but I think so. I think he's still got enough pull. He'll be all right. If he loses again, especially to somebody unranked who I think they'll give him, then he's gone.
And note that he made a statement today that he's taking a hiatus. And that is exactly what somebody says before you cut them and they go to Bellator. So, yeah, UFC's going to hold on to him.
Yeah, so I was thinking, especially too, aren't they going to England like in the next couple months or something like that too? So
in March.
I'd imagine Till would at least hang around to be on that card. All right.
I can see Till versus Masasi. It's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah. All right. Ben. I said Ben. Ben, is Ilia Topuria a future champ?
Considering the two divisions he kind of plies his trade in, 145 to 155, I'm always going to take the field over insert name here, but he's probably the brightest of these kind of undefeated up-and-comers. More likely him than Allen, or even Evloev.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he put on a show. Like, he shut down Bryce every way which you can imagine. That was great performance by him. Jay, I got one for you.
All right.
Will Liz Carmouche get her wish for Bellator opening a 135-pound division?
Are there even 15 135ers out there that aren't on the UFC or Invicta? Like, it'll be Liz and like 3 ladies, so no way.
I mean, she can have her picture on the Bellator website with just the belt and no contenders, just like the UFC featherweight division.
Oh, so they can make her their Nunes and then...
Yeah, so there's that.
She's the pound for pound number 2 behind Cyborg. Billy, wait, no.
It's like, is she? All right, Jay, can you ask me a question?
I'd be happy to ask you a question. We talked about Raul Rosas Jr., 18 years young. He was my stat of the week. How fast are they going to build him, or how slowly are they going to build him? What do you think?
I think they're going to build him slowly. I mean, keeping in mind his age, I think they're watching what Bellator did with Aaron Pico and like, hey, let's dial it back a little bit. Kid seems like he's got a nice personality. He's clearly gifted. Let's see where it goes. All right, fellas. Well, it's time to move on to perhaps the greatest title segment.
Actually, I got to follow up. It's a show of hands. It's a show of on one hand. How many more Contender Series vets will the UFC make Rosas fight in the next few fights?
I
think they're gonna bring people from the Contender Series to fight Rosas Jr.
Yeah,
including losers.
Sure. Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
I'll say five. Yeah. He's not going to face anybody of serious note for a little while. Yeah, I'd say around his 22nd birthday. I think maybe they unleash him a little bit.
Yeah,
and he'll graduate from Contender Series people. Like the first time he's ready for a real quote unquote step up, it's gonna be a Guida Miller Lozon type, like just an ultra shot person with like 30 fights in the UFC but name recognition. Yeah.
So that's probably what's hit it for him.
Is Jim Rivera's in BKFC now? Because Jim Rivera would be that kind of guy, but he's gone.
No. You could bring him back.
Nothing says you can't come back. All right, fellas, let's move on to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. Ben, I'll begin with you. What's your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, despite taking a demoralizing loss in the cage on Saturday, his first career loss, Bryce Mitchell did receive his black belt in Brazilian excuse jitsu over the weekend. He came out on Monday and said that he didn't feel very well on Saturday and that he had the flu. Made a social media post where, of course, extravagantly misspelled, as we've come to expect. He said, I thought, and it's THOT. I don't know if he doesn't know that that's not, like, they're two different words. He said he thought THOT, he'd be fine, but he swore never again to fight if he's feeling less than 100%. He enters a fine, long-standing tradition of having excuses for, poor performances where, I mean, we kind of know that nobody's 100% going in. It's not like his shoulder was ready to disintegrate on him or something. I'm mildly surprised that somebody that thinks the earth is flat believes in the flu. Like, does he think you just get it from like little invisible wizards and elves that like float around your head and like, you know, sprinkle magic dust on you? I don't know, but pretty on brand for Mitchell. Like, doesn't seem to know how illness works or physics or astronomy or power tools.
Man, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he one of the people talking about like COVID was just the flu, so it wasn't a big deal?
Yes.
But then also too, I'm just wondering, like, the info that maybe he was sick, you know, fight week. Can you imagine James Krause just sitting on his hands trying not to bet? Just like, oh, I gotta go to the booth. He's losing his mind.
Fred Flintstone. Bet.
He's calling up all his friends. He's like, please, man, just take this to the bookie right now. Just take the bookie. They're like, hey, man, I think the FBI is sitting outside my house right now. I can't do it. They got a van outside that says "Flowers by Irene." I can't do it.
But there's something on my like Wi-Fi list now that says FBI surveillance van, so I know it's not Flowers by Irene. Like,
all right, Pat, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment is that this just happened a little bit before we jumped on here, but John Nash reporting that Francis Ngannou is in fact a free agent. So Ngannou had said that he was going to be up in December, and then Nash had said no, based on contracts, probably closer to January. Apparently had made a mistake and kind of, you know, has a thread out there that explains what happened with an older contract. Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that Francis Ngannou is a free agent right now, and didn't get a deal done with the UFC. There's no exclusive matching period anymore in the new contract, so he's wide open to talk to whoever he wants. And again, I don't think he's coming back to the UFC, at least not initially. That's my thought. But
where's his next stop?
Boxing. 100% boxing.
Against who?
Somebody that they can set up for Fury eventually.
Jake Paul.
That would be amazing.
that would be lovely.
I don't know. And any sort of heavyweight, older heavyweight that still wants to go out and fight and do either exhibitions or what have you.
Roy Jones.
And
Mike Tyson.
Yeah. And no, Tyson would be amazing, but I don't think they would do that. Then again, that would still, I don't know.
I just got a real itchy feeling on my arm about Tyson versus Ngannou exhibition style.
But it's definitely some boxing name they can make a bunch of pay-per-view.
Deontay Wilder is the name. That's the guy. That's the guy. If you're doing this, Deontay Wilder is the guy. That's the best quality fight with the highest dollar value attached. In my opinion.
It is, and it's the one of the people of that general level in boxing where I think Ngannou might actually have the best chance. Because Wilder's always a guy that's made it go the most on physical tools and just freakish, like, natural ability as opposed to, like, a really refined game. You know, like, Fury or Josh would just embarrass Ngannou. Yeah. Like, it would be Conor versus Floyd. Ngannou wouldn't lay a finger on him.
But Andy Ruiz would absolutely wipe the floor with Ngannou. It wouldn't even be close. He would
the floor,
him.
And it'd be boring until Ruiz turned it up and knocked him out.
Yeah. No, and honestly, it just comes down to, does Ngannou want to do this once or twice? Does he want to actually kind of turn this into boxing, right? Because if he only wants to do it once or twice, and Fury's called you out technically like he calls everyone out, if you can parlay that fight, even if you're going to get your ass beat, you're going to make more money than you'll ever make the rest of your combat career.
How long has Fury been doing this? I remember him calling out Cain Velasquez.
Yeah,
that's true.
He's been doing this for like 12 years now.
And he was putting out videos of him throwing leg kicks on social media like 10 years ago. It's like the worst leg kicks you've ever seen. He's thrown. But
yeah,
I'm going to dissent here, and I'm going to say that Ngannou will box, but he's going to fight a former UFC heavyweight that is a free agent, that is aging, that maybe like one of my ideas is, I think that over Reem, he has a multi-year deal with Glory, but I don't believe it's an exclusive contract. I believe Reem could box something like that. Or like, like maybe throw in like Spong's probably too small, but I think it's going to be somebody who had fought for the UFC, isn't a pro longtime boxer, and then he'll get that Fury type name.
I mean,
Yeah,
Spawn
I
kickboxes.
can see
He
Spawn.
kickboxes at around 220, 225.
Yeah, Spawn could fit in that mold.
I mean,
like,
Spawn's boxed for a while. That's why I'm mentioning him, because he's actually established himself as
he was like a real
proficient
ranked
boxer.
pro boxer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He picked up a minor belt. Like he's
he's legit. The thing is, the problem is with like the high profile UFC heavyweights, like he's knocked them out. Some of like JDS and Overeem are the first two names.
What happens when Overeem fights Ngannou in the boxing ring?
Like what happens when Overeem doesn't have to worry about Ngannou's takedowns?
Yes.
Well, no, that's why I think they do an older boxer, right? Somebody with name value that they can just establish, because Wilder makes plenty of sense if you're ready for that level, but I don't think they're going to do somebody who's never boxed before up against Deontay Wilder.
Yeah,
instead, you do like it.
They did Conor versus Floyd, man. Anything's possible.
Right, as an exhibition, though, right? Like, it depends on how many of these he wants to do, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, it is possible, but that's also
Conor Floyd was a pro boxing match.
That was a pro. Yeah, that was.
That was
you're right.
down
Never
to- that
mind.
was down to
Okay,
50.
yeah, that's true. I just don't think. I don't think
Mind you.
Ngannou has the same
I agree completely.
like
He doesn't have
draw,
the sway.
right? Where everyone's just going to look the other way.
Yes.
But
He could. I mean, we'll see. Like heavyweights are always such a big attraction that negates a lot of the things that would make a Conor. Like it negates a lot of those personality factors if somebody's just really, really big and they look like a comic book character.
And Shane Carwin's 47. That probably wouldn't work.
I forgot he even existed. Well, I mean, he might leave the engineering plant or something to pick up a
six-figure payday.
$1,000,000.
His fists are he's probably still ripped.
Yeah, might be.
I like that one.
All right, yeah, I hate that too. All right, so Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment?
Oh, I have so many good ones. I was going to talk about Bryce Mitchell's burgeoning rap career. I don't know if you noticed that he walked out his own walkout song. His own rap, his own rap track called like "Fight Hard," and one of the bars is like "Don't Believe Gravity." I wanted to talk about that so bad, but I'm not, because that hurts my feelings. I'm going to talk about instead the biggest betting upset in
totally
Bellator
isn't he?
history. I don't know, but okay, hold on. I did not think that Bryce Mitchell's rap would sound anything like rap. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever heard.
No, it wasn't.
It was. I mean, it wasn't great, but I was like, okay, this kid has more rhythm than I thought he would. I'm surprised. I expected it would be atrocious, but anyway, biggest betting upset in Bellator history happened over this past weekend, and not many people realize that because of how many crazy favorites and hilarious minus 2,000 fighters they throw in there against an 0-0 prospect or something like that, and let's see what happened. Well, 1-0 Pat Downey, former national champion wrestler he was an All-American Division I in Iowa State, I think. So a legitimate amateur wrestler that is 1-0 in Bellator. Fought 2-2 Christian Eccles. It was supposed to be a showcase walkthrough. You know, he wipes this kid out, no big deal. And yeah, no kidding. And what happened is Downey tried a couple takedowns, because his first fight was a 36-second arm triangle, which is I'm tackling you, we're done. That was one of those even quicker than Randy versus James Toney kind of situation. So he tried that against this Christian Eccles dude, and Eccles said nah, and then Pat Downey was tired. Like, we're talking, this guy was gassed within 90 seconds. Gassed, completely spent, worse than Maria Agapova. Tired, barely keep his hands up, and Eccles just teed off on him and gadoosh, just uppercutted him and put him out. And it was the biggest betting upset in Bellator history because Downey was a minus 2,000 favorite against Eccles. So yeah, how about that? A bigger upset than Home Rousey or GSP Sarah or So Could You Little Nog or anything like that was Bellator. Prelims, nothing. Yeah.
Bravo. I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment comes courtesy of the world of Ramzan Kadyrov. He made it twice this week here. One by association and one just himself. First off, Justin Gaethje, UFC former lightweight interim champion, he had a tweet that made a lot of sense, but pots and kettles, baby. He tweeted something about Barstool Sports, their like devotion to Paddy Pimblett and declaration that this was a fight of the night. And he says, hey, Barstool Sports, you're making yourself look bad. That was no way the fight of the night. You know, you're sucking up, blah, 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 et cetera, which is very true. We've shared our issues with some Barstool Sports personalities and social media posts on this show in the past, and that certainly fits into that mold. But he got roasted because, you know, people were like, well, at least he's not hanging out with a murderous dictator. And I guess Gaethje tried to deny this, and somehow or another he forgot that there were pictures and videos of him at the gun range with Kadyrov and laughing and with his sons and, you know, arms around each other, and they're just having a good old time, old buddy up. So I'm not surprised by that on every level of that ridiculous story. But I also am not surprised by the foolishness of one Ramzan Kadyrov, who, despite being a murderous despot, a bigot who literally slaughters people, he had the nerve to call out someone on moral grounds. He had a lengthy social media post where he criticized Dana White about the decision, the split draw with Ankalaev and Blachowicz, because Ankalaev is one of his guys. So, hey, you didn't get to take a belt home to cheer in front of your POWs. So, you know, tough breaks. I'm not surprised, but I am kind of. I don't know. Fuck that guy. All right.
Seriously.
Yeah. What a morally bankrupt person altogether. What a just completely immature man-child bitch of a human being.
Yeah. Just piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What fuck you, Ramzan Kadyrov. Fuck you. Like you fucking bitch. All right. Let's keep things pushing here because we got one more event that the UFC is offering this year. And then everyone gets to take a little break. Jared Cannonier and Sean Strickland, main event, return to the Apex Center. Any other fights that you want to highlight here before we give predictions for the main event?
Give me the all excitement. Probably should be fight of the night, but won't get the award because something crazy will happen. Bruce Leroy and Julian Erosa is my accidental fight of the night. Like it kind of slides into that spot. Just because I don't know what's going to happen. Like both of these guys have the unexpectedly brilliant capacity to be winning fights and give it away at the end. So like I could see a third round banana peel stoppage loss type of situation to either guy that is dramatic and wild until it isn't anymore. So that's mine.
I just am rooting for Said Nurmagomedov versus Said Yakub Kakramanov to go all 3 rounds, just because like Jay Petrie.
No,
and the only thing that will make this better, I suspect that DC won't be on the mic for this one. They're probably going to let him go, and this will be like a Fitz and Bisping and Felder one. Yeah. Because between Said Nurmagomedov versus Said Yakub Kakramanov and Jake Matthews versus Matthew Semmelsberger, it would just be DC just drowning in this vat of word salad and just like basically having a stroke on air. Like that would really like just tie a nice bow on my year. Like his basically like just his complete verbal breakdowns. Ironically, since I couldn't find my words there, it's the closest thing we have to like Goldie still being around. And nothing better than when one or both fighters' names are hard to say.
Yeah, it's Gooden and Hardy. We're calling Arnold Allen and Alan Omer, and that was an absolute one of the train wreckiest calls of an event that they ever. Because you figure they would just call one Arnold and the other Omer, but because of the accent, Arnold and Omer sounded similar, so they just couldn't win. It was wonderful. No, I don't want this fight to go the distance. Damn it, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a sneaky good fight that, well, could be sneaky good, could be just terrible, is Brian Battle versus Rinat Fakhretdinov, I think.
Fakhretdinov, yeah.
Yep, there you go. No, I think that could end up being a sneaky good fight. From what I've seen of Rinat, I think he's got some skills, and then Battle has just been killing it. So yeah, I like that as another fun fight, but otherwise nothing outside the main event. I mean, I guess Armin and Demir, but.
And I want you to tell us why you picked Drew Dober versus Bobby Green.
Oh my God, yes, you know me too well. Drew Dober and Bobby Green, yes, please. I'm a mark for Bobby Green. When Bobby Green is on, man, that dude is absolute must-watch TV. Drew Dober, a really quality action fighter that I don't think gets labeled that enough. Like Drew Dober has been in some really cool fights, and the striking acumen of both men. This, I think, like, just from a pure striking standpoint, this is such a good style clash. Like, Dober's just aggressive power and Green's sort of slick defensive capabilities. I love this matchup. And I think even if it turns out, I know, baby, that's a microphone. And even if this doesn't turn out to be like a full-on slugfest, which I think they're both too technically good for it to devolve into that level of slugfest. It's still from just a pure technical standpoint, it should be very interesting. It should provide a lot of good analysis and stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to watching that one. And it may not be the one that suits the casual, but I am a man of refined taste. I am the high level fan.
We used to call those Matt Brown type fights technical brawls.
Absolutely. So, fellas, quick picks for the main event: Cannonier, Strickland, how and why?
I'll go. This is a little version of the Strickland versus Pereira fight, where Strickland might be able to beat Cannonier just in a pure striking match. Just he's one of the best jabs in the division, and he's very good at applying that jab when he's the taller fighter, which he will be. If he can keep his chin off the gunnery range, for 5 rounds, he can win this as a straightforward striking battle. He's a slight favorite for a reason, but the route to victory is there. He's an underratedly good wrestler, and if he either embraces that or at least takes Cannonier down once or twice early to give him something to think about, that opens up everything else for him. He didn't even try to take Pereira down, and as much as kind of a psychopath goofball as he makes himself out to be, I have the feeling he's kicking himself in the ass for that. He's sitting there with his duct tape TV in his no furniture apartment, just going, shit, I should have tried to at least shoot a double. I'm thinking he doesn't make that same mistake again. Give me Strickland to fight a smart game plan, because he normally actually is pretty smart inside the cage, and take a decision over Cannonier here.
Pat, what do you see it as?
I think Strickland probably gets this done, but at the same time, Cannonier has power too, right? And and he's well-rounded enough. I thought even though Whitaker clearly won that fight, I mean, Cannonier impressed me in that matchup. And so I would not be shocked for Cannonier to land a big shot or have enough defensive wrestling. It kind of stifles Strickland and forces Strickland to be on the feet more than he wants. I don't know why. I'm actually going to say, just gut pick, I'm going to go Cannonier, but it's super razor thin. I mean, yeah. I could see either one of these guys winning, no problem.
Yeah. Jay, what say you?
I'm going to openly plagiarize my analysis from an anonymous Redditor once upon a time. I don't know who actually posted it. It has made the round so many times. It's kind of one of those urban things, the urban legends that passes around so many times you don't know where it came from. So I'm just going to say it like this. For Sean Strickland, he needs to use the striking, specifically lengthy punches such as jabs and straights, judge the distance accordingly, and plan his method of attack. Footwork is key, but he must move in lateral motion in the correct direction and be patient to wait for countering opportunities. While Jared Cannonier, fist go boop. Flip a coin, it's heads, which means fist go boop, 3rd round knockout for Jared Cannonier.
All right, I'm with you guys on Cannonier getting this one, and I think I'm with you Pat, in that I could see it going either way. And I think if Strickland fights the smart game plan, he should on paper win. But Cannonier his defensive wrestling is really good, and I think if he's able to stop the shot, if Strickland decides to shoot, and that shot is stuffed, and he has to stand there in front of Cannonier, it's just not good to provide Cannonier the opportunities to bust you upside the head. And then on top of that, Strickland does like to throw that jab. Very good jab. Problem is with the jab is that you got to lean real heavy on that lead leg. Cannonier has ended fights with leg kicks before. So if that leg gets kicked out, he's forced to stand there and fight, and he doesn't have enough power in his legs to shoot a desperation takedown. I think it gets really ugly really quick. But I think Strickland is going to be able to survive to the final bell. But I see pretty clear-cut decision going for Cannonier.
I'm going to amend mine to second-round knockout for Cannonier.
Okay. All right. I see you. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Big shout-out to Pat OJ. Thank you so much. I should point this way because the screen mirrors and all that. Thanks for showing up again, man. Looking forward to having you on again. And please watch for your DMs and text messages because I will be sending you something to insult you to balance out the good things I said earlier today. So keep that in mind.
That, man.
Of course, what are friends for? Ben and Jay, as always, hold it down. You can catch all three of these gentlemen's work on Sherdog, Pat's Fight Business Podcast. Yeah. Ben and Jay with the Fight Week coverage, and Ilia will be driving me insane all week until we meet, and she gets to interrupt the show again. So find my work on MMA On Point. I think my first video back will be up tomorrow as we're recording this, I think, if I read that Slack message correctly. So like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.